Here's a fun fact. Scientists discover over 150 new deep-sea species every year. But what if one of them contained a mind-controlling parasite that could end all life on the planet, huh? This ordinary research trip becomes a battle to the death when they're attacked by a giant glowing jellyfish that uses human bodies to reproduce. And by the end, they'll have to do whatever it takes in order to survive. We're here to break down the mistakes made, what you probably should do, and how to beat the deep sea parasite in sea fever. This girl is about to wish that she'd dropped out of school. Siobhan here is a marine biology student with a focus on life in the deep sea. She's an introvert who'd rather spend her whole career in the lab, but today, the professor is sending her into the field, and nothing could ever prepare her for what she's about to find. Arriving at the dock, she's greeted by this deckhand, Johnny, who helps the girl with her luggage and welcomes her aboard their ship. After introducing her to the Captain Freya and her husband Gerard, they leave to get her settled in while the crew prepares for their trip. Talking to Freya, the girl explains, in the nerdiest way possible, that she's a scientist who's there to take pictures of whatever they catch. But for her assignment, she's also required to make a short dive while they're out at sea. When she takes off her hat, they're all deeply offended to discover that she's a redhead, saying that having her on the ship is bad luck. But they've already spent the money that she paid for her ticket, so it looks like she's going whether they like it or not. I mean, the trip starts off pretty promising, but it doesn't take long before the Coast Guard warns them that they're headed straight for an exclusion zone, meaning that they'll have to pick a new spot to fish. It's frustrating news, sure, and knowing that he'll never get another opportunity to save his business, Gerard decides to stick to their original course without telling anyone else. But that, as you can probably guess, is about to be his biggest mistake. Alright, somebody needs to send this guy back to boating school because he's about to get them all killed. He's so desperate for money that he's taking them directly into an exclusion zone, but if they aren't careful, then they could end up getting excluded from the rest of their lives. Alright, now an exclusion zone is a designated area where civilian boats are restricted from entering, and this could be for safety, environmental, or even military purposes. In this case, the Coast Guard said that the area was off limits because of some whales and their calves, but if he decided to go through with this, then the whales won't be the only ones in danger. This trip is taking them almost 200 miles from shore, putting them in the range of where only other large ships, aircraft, or emergency response teams can realistically reach them. But because they're a commercial fishing ship operating more than 30 miles from the coast, they're required by UK law to have an emergency position indicating radio beacon, or EPIRB, which automatically sends a distress signal with their exact coordinates if the ship were to sink. If they suffered an emergency but were following all proper safety measures, the Coast Guard could reach them in as little as 2 hours, or even faster depending on the conditions. But since Gerard has decided to take them off the grid deliberately, hiding their location from the exact people who were supposed to rescue them, they could be looking at more than 24 or more hours before they're found. And if their beacon was damaged, then they might never be found at all. As a student who's just trying to get her degree, Siobhan here did not sign up for this level of danger. The only problem is, she has no reason to suspect that Gerard would ever do something like this in the first place. So it's not like she's going to be constantly double-checking her GPS. However, while collecting her data, she's likely using a marine biology mapping tool that timestamps and logs her location, and by paying attention to these coordinates, she might notice the discrepancy between their actual location and their approved route. As soon as she catches on, I'd go straight to his wife Freya, since she's the real captain of the boat, and warn her that we need to get back on a safe course. But by the time that they realize what he's done, it's already going to be too late. Late one night, the captain finds the girl sitting alone on the deck, telling her to come look at something off the side of the ship. Peering over, they see the water glowing blue from bioluminescent plankton, and she tells a story from Irish folklore about a woman named Niamh Kinor, whose golden hair was said to cause the lights. The next morning, they're starting to doubt their chances of catching any fish when they notice a family of whales swimming next to their boat. The crew takes it as a good sign, but Siobhan here thinks that something must have gone wrong, because she knows that whales tend to stay far away from the fishing lanes. Just then, the captain announces that they're closing in on a large shoal of fish up ahead, but when they look again, they realize that it's actually closing in on them. All of a sudden, the ship slams straight into something massive under the water, sending the crew and all of their equipment flying as they're jolted to a sudden stop. Checking for damage, the ship's engineer Ahmed asks for the girl to come down and take a look at something, showing her a number of strange new growths that have started to appear on the hull. Unsure at what she's looking at, she leans in closer and pokes one of the marks with her pencil, causing it to start leaking some kind of mysterious blue liquid. Oh, they've never seen anything like it before, but they both have a feeling that it's bad news, and the truth is that their problems are actually just getting started. To make things worse, Freya here can't even get the boat to move anymore, leaving them stranded in the open water. Worried, she tries calling the Coast Guard, but their radio was damaged in the crash, and when she looks at the GPS, she realizes that her husband sailed them straight into the heart of the exclusion zone. Taking a closer look at the blue slime coming from the growth, the girl abruptly rushes off to grab a spoon from the kitchen, using it to collect a sample for her research. By now, there's enough of it leaking through to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but when the skipper comes down to investigate, he ends up stepping in a pile of the goop without noticing, getting the substance all over the bottom of his boot. Reaching in with his finger, he starts peeling back sections of the rotten wood until he finally reveals what's on the other side, a disgusting red mouth that the girl suspects could be an undiscovered species of barnacle. Whatever it is, somebody needs to get in the water and peel them off the side of the ship. And that's when he reminds Siobhan here that not only does she have scuba gear, but she's also required to make a dive for her class. She's worried that it could be dangerous, but researching undiscovered species is literally supposed to be her job, so her only choice is to get in there and find out for herself. Alright, this is an absolutely terrible idea. And whether she's a future marine biologist or not, Siobhan here needs to be careful. They're assuming what they're looking at is some kind of barnacle, but instead of passive marine growths, the evidence here looks more like they're being hunted by a highly evolved, extremely large predator. When they first picked up the creature on their sonar, it started from far away, but then quickly closed the distance before intentionally colliding with their ship and attaching itself to the hull. To me, that doesn't seem like an accidental crash, it seems like they were being deliberately targeted. Now, true barnacles are filter feeders, but these creatures have radial mouth parts, making them more similar to carnivorous worms, sea anemones, or lampreys, indicating that they feed by suction and biting. On top of that, the sonar seems to indicate that this isn't just a large collection of individual creatures, but instead, they're all connected to one massive body. And whatever it is, it's strong enough to hold a several hundred-ton fishing boat in place, meaning that it could easily overpower one tiny human in a scuba suit. So there's absolutely no way in hell that I'd be getting in that water without knowing what they were up against first. Now, with that being said, as a marine biology student working on her PhD, she's actually in a better position to understand this than just about anyone else. So much that I'd start by learning as much as I could from the safety of the ship. First, I'd carefully observe the blue secretions under her microscope and check if it reacts in response to heat, light, or vibration. I'd also expose the barnacle itself to UV light, changes in salinity concentration, and electric current. Generally speaking, we know that deep-sea marine organisms are extremely sensitive to changes in their environment, so through trial and error, they can use the creature's own natural weaknesses to dislodge it from inside the ship, either through directly attacking it by exposing it to a harmful stimuli, or even by luring it away with some more attractive bait. Now, while she's studying its behaviors, the others should quickly work to cover all of the new barnacle holes, because it seems like it's only a matter of time before they eat through and get into the ship. They should also carefully clean up the strange blue slime while avoiding direct contact with it as much as possible, since they still aren't sure what effects it might have. Putting on her gear, she dives into the murky water and turns back to face the ship, but what she discovers there is even more bizarre than she ever imagined. Clinging to the side are several long glowing tentacles, and she uses her knife to start peeling one off, but Ahmed quickly knocks on the hull from the inside, warning her that removing it would let water into the ship. Suddenly, several more of the tentacles appear behind her, lunging towards her with a star-shaped mouth full of hook-like teeth. And looking down, she realizes that they're all connected to a giant bioluminescent creature that's unlike anything she's ever seen. But she's able to make it back to the surface before it attacks again, climbing back to the safety of the boat. Back on board, the girl tries her best to explain what she saw, telling them that it was like some kind of enormous jellyfish or squid. Instead of reacting with any concern, the skipper here immediately sees this as his chance to make a huge payday, and tells the crew to drop the nets, hoping to catch this monster and bring it home. Nervous, she tells them that they should be calling for rescue, but Freya here reassures her that nothing could possibly go wrong, explaining that squids can't handle the pressure near the surface and it should let go of the ship as soon as they start pulling it up. They all seem confident that it's going to work, but when they start to raise the nets, their equipment quickly begins to struggle under the creature's massive weight. Determined not to miss his chance, the skipper orders them to keep going, but eventually he has to admit that it's no use, and they decide to give up before they completely destroy their machines. In all of the excitement, Johnny here gets so distracted that he accidentally gets his hand stuck in the winch. Screaming in pain, he shouts for the girl to hit the brake, but she just stands there frozen until Ahmed finally shuts it off, saving him before it gets any worse. Okay, that plan just went under faster than the Titanic, and trying to catch this thing probably just pissed it off even more, but thanks to what Siobhan saw on her dive, now they at least have a better understanding of what they're actually dealing with. The girl described it as a deep-sea Nidarian, putting it in the same category of gelatinous aquatic creatures as jellyfish and sea anemones. Like, these animals have no central brain or nerve net, leaving them without any capacity for intelligent thought. Instead, they hunt by responding quickly and instinctively to environmental stimuli, and understanding this actually allows us to manipulate its behaviors. As a Nidarian, the creature is hardwired to respond to specific cues like vibration, heat, electrical activity, and biochemical signatures. So if they can set up the right decoy, then they might trick it into letting go. I mean, I would rig up a buoy that produces its own vibrations and heat signatures in the water and then throw it overboard as a distraction, waiting for the creature to loosen its grip while inspecting the new prey, and then hitting the gas. The only problem is, it seems like the creature prefers large prey, and they might not have anything big enough on the ship to get its attention, so if that's the case, then they'll have to take a more direct approach. Now, as intimidating as they might be, the exposed tentacles holding onto the ship are also its greatest weakness. Neanderans absorb vital nutrients through their soft tissue, making them incredibly vulnerable to salinity shifts and chemical irritants. By using a syringe or makeshift injectors, they can force irritants like ethanol, diesel fuel, bleach, or like other cleaning chemicals directly into the creature's system, disrupting it on a cellular level. I mean, this doesn't even have to be enough to kill it, just enough for it to decide that the boat is no longer a viable target, you know? It's not hungry anymore. Otherwise, I would try using electricity against it next, either by deploying a high voltage current straight to the parts of the hull where the creature is latched on, or by using a fishing crane to drop a metal barrel wired with a battery directly on top of its main body, trying to disorient or damage it enough to force a retreat. But if all else fails, then there's just one other idea that just might work. This area is supposed to be off limits because of the whales, and if the creature hunts them as its primary food source, then it may have attacked the ship in a case of mistaken identity. Using their sonar, they can reconfigure the device to emit sound pulses that closely mimic whale clicks, with the goal of luring a pod of whales into the area. Then they can sit back and let nature take its course, using the whales as meat shields while they make their escape. Once they're gone, Siobhan inspects the scene of the accident and discovers that the strange blue slime was all over the line, but that's when she notices something even more important, spotting another boat floating in the distance. The skipper here thinks that they might be able to catch the squid, still not fully grasping how much danger they're really in. They've got no radio to contact them, and strangely, the other ship doesn't reply when they send up a distress flare, so they decide to send over a team to check it out. Getting into a rowboat, the skipper, Johnny, and the girl nervously make their way across and climb aboard the mysterious boat. But what's strange is that nobody ever shows up to see what they want. Searching the deck, they can't find any sign of the ship's crew, and the girl is shocked to discover that they intentionally destroyed their radio. Concerned, they climb below deck looking for any signs of life, but the entire boat is as quiet as a graveyard. The deeper that they go into the eerie silence, they eventually begin to hear the faint sound of music coming from the valley, and turning the corner, the girl is faced with the most traumatizing sight that she's ever witnessed. Sitting at the table are what's left of the crew, all dead from what were definitely not natural causes, and one of them even had his eyeballs ripped straight out of his skull. Horrified, she asks the skipper what happened, but the only explanation that he can come up with is that they must have gone crazy from sea fever, and to keep the others from panicking, he orders them not to say a word about it when they get back to their ship. Alright, these three are understandably shocked by what they've just witnessed, but there are still a few ways that they can use this abandoned boat to their advantage. Their rowboat is small enough that it doesn't attract the creature's attention, meaning that they're safe to travel back and forth as much as they need to. Now, since they don't know how much longer they'll be stuck out here, the first thing that I would do is raid the boat for any useful supplies, like sealed cans of food, bottled water, first aid, tools, weapons, you know what I mean. Then I would want to take a look at their radio equipment. Although the radios on both boats might be broken, it could still be possible to salvage components from each and combine them to make a working radio, allowing them to call for help from the Coast Guard. Now, once they've searched it for all the useful supplies, they can actually use the boat as a decoy. I mean, we know that the creature attacks ships, so I'd send Ahmed and Sudi here across to see if they can get the other ship's engines started again. Then cut all the power to their own boat so that it's floating completely silently. If they do it right, then there's a good chance that the creature will shift its attention to focus on the new prey, and when it lets go, they can let their ship silently drift away as far as possible before cutting the engines back on and getting the out of here. But even if they can't get the creature to go after the boat, they can still use the boat itself as one giant distress signal by setting it on fire. The best time to do this would be during the daylight to give them the most visibility from low-flying aircraft. Before starting it, I'd take as much rubber or oily material from their own ship as they can spare and use it to create the largest, darkest smoke cloud possible. I mean, the cloud should rise thousands of feet into the air and be visible from as far as 25 miles away under good conditions. And based on the usual air traffic patterns around this part of the Irish coast, this could give them at least a 15% chance of someone finding them, and that's much better than what they're working with right now. Getting back to the boat, Gerard tries to play it off like nothing happened, vaguely explaining that the other crew couldn't help, but to his relief, they find out that the squid actually let them go while they were gone, and now they're free to start heading back to shore. It seems like great news, but the student here still has a feeling that they won't be getting away so easily. Raising her concerns to the others, she explains that animals don't usually catch something just to give up for no reason, and sure enough, that's when the skipper announces that another large object is headed their way. It could be a school of fish, so he actually wants to drop the nets again, and knowing that they'll lose their business if they go home empty-handed, his wife reluctantly agrees to let him try. This time, when they pull the line back up, they're relieved to find that the nets are full of fish, and it looks like they'll all be getting paid after all. Excited, they quickly pack their catch into the hold, but as they're working, Johnny notices that he's unusually tired, deciding to hit the bunks and get some rest. Once they finally have a moment to talk privately, Sivan here asks him what he thinks about the other ship, but he says that it's scary stuff and it happens all the time when you're at sea, convincing her not to overthink it. Putting away her computer, they're just about to kiss for the first time when they're interrupted by the two others, telling Johnny here that he's needed in the kitchen. She joins them a little while later and immediately notices that Johnny looks even worse than before, but he plays it off by saying that he's still hot from his shower. As the group all joke about their adventures together, she actually feels like she's starting to make friends. But then completely out of nowhere, he gets up from the table and announces that he's going for a swim. Confused, everyone takes a moment to process what just happened before they all get up and rush to stop him, catching him just as he's about to plunge into pitch black water. Strangely, it's like he's suddenly lost any sense of safety, and bringing him back to the galley, the others question what could have possibly gotten into his head, but they won't have to wait very long to find out. Okay, it looks like something's gotten into Johnny here, and whenever there's a giant tentacle in the picture, those are not the words that you want to hear. He just tried to do a cannonball off the back of a moving ship, 100 miles from shore, in the middle of the night. Nobody with two brain cells to rub together would ever do something like this, even to impress their crush. And it's a clear sign that this dude is not thinking straight. Now, the skipper calls it sea fever, and that's not just because it's the name of the movie. What he's describing is a colloquial name for the real-life condition that causes sailors to gradually lose their minds during prolonged trips at sea. The combination of isolation, claustrophobia, and sleep deprivation can lead you to doing some pretty wild But Johnny isn't just acting strange, he's showing signs of exhaustion and fever, which means that he's literally getting sick. The first thing that they need to do is quarantine him in a well-ventilated, secure part of the ship and assign 1 or 2 crew members to check on him at regular intervals. This isn't just for his own safety, but it's also in case his condition is contagious, preventing him from spreading it to the rest of the crew. While the others decontaminate any surfaces that he's been in contact with, she can treat his fever with damp towels to cool him off, Tylenol or ibuprofen, and plenty of electrolytes, because they still need to keep him alive for a few days before they reach the shore. But in all the chaos, she's accidentally overlooking one very important detail. Johnny started showing symptoms after his hand was cut by the slime-covered cable. If Savan had noticed this, then she could have taken a closer look at her sample of the blue slime through her digital microscope and looked for the presence of any parasites or fungi. Then compare them with a sample from Johnny's saliva or sweat to see that it's causing the illness. Finding out what's really bothering him is the only way to get him the appropriate treatment, but in just a second, getting sick is going to be the least of his worries. By now, Johnny's beginning to snap out of it, but just as he's coming back to his senses, he starts to complain about an uncomfortable itchiness in his eyes. And using her flashlight to get a closer look, she's horrified to see some kind of tiny larva floating around inside his pupil. Getting up, he staggers over to the sink, while down below, Sudi here is just getting into the shower. Just then, he starts shouting in pain as he says that he's gone completely blind, when all of a sudden his eyeballs literally explode out of his head, sending blood and hundreds of tiny tadpole-like creatures straight down the drain. The others rush to help him, trying to keep the pressure on the wounds, but he's losing too much blood and quickly succumbs to his injuries, making one down with 6 more to go. Stunned, they can only sit there wondering what the hell just happened, and the girl calls them into the hallway to explain what she saw. Telling them about the parasites, they remember that Sudi is still in the shower, and if the creatures go into the pipes, then it's only a matter of time before they infect him next. Rushing to warn him, Ahmed pounds on the door telling him to turn off the water, but the man thinks that it's just a prank, refusing to listen no matter how hard they beg. Freya finally cuts off the water line, but when he looks towards the shower head, he's suddenly hit directly in the face with a blast of tadpole juice. And by the time that they're finally able to get inside, they find him cowering on the floor, covered in blood and the mysterious blue ooze. Heartbroken, the others take Johnny's body down to the hold, while the girl looks for an explanation somewhere in her textbooks. But there's nothing that she can do to distract herself from the grief. They're still a long way from home, but now that the parasites have entered their filtration system, there's a whole new problem ahead of them, because they won't last very long without clean water to drink. This means that they've already gotten into the ship's main tank, and he cuts off the pipe to leave them trapped inside, but that's when Siobhan here suggests that they should open up the lid, saying how getting a better look could help her figure out what they're dealing with. Working together, they slowly pull open the hatch just to get a peek inside. But as soon as they do, the tadpoles start jumping up to attack them, as Ahmed stomps on one that almost escapes. Her best guess is that they must be some kind of larva, but she still has no idea what species they could be from. She explains that the problem should solve itself, because if these are saltwater creatures trying to survive in freshwater, then they should all be dead in a matter of hours. This brings them back to Sudi, who's worried that he might be infected too, and his friend wants to know why they can't get help from another boat, forcing the skipper here to finally admit that everyone on board was dead. Blaming it on sea fever, they decide to focus on what they can actually control, and he orders everyone back to their jobs around the ship, sending the girl to spend the night on watch. Okay, man, this situation just keeps getting worse, and they might be sailing in the Atlantic Ocean, but the skipper here is clearly still living in denial. The only problem is, ignoring the alien parasite won't just make it go away, so unless they all want to end up like Johnny here, then they need to keep their eyes on survival. I mean, the first thing that they should do is immediately quarantine Sudi in the controlled part of the ship and limit their interactions with him to only what's absolutely necessary. They don't have enough information, time, or the right equipment to completely cure him, but what they can do is try to slow it down. We know that parasites rely on very specific conditions within the body to reproduce, so what they need to do is start altering Sudi's internal environment. Like first, they can treat him with a saline solution or saltwater mixture with the goal of being to slightly raise the salinity of his blood to force water out of the parasitic cells via osmosis, causing them to become dehydrated and possibly die off. I'd also try using heat induction by slightly raising his body temperature. I mean, when you get a fever like Johnny did, that's not a symptom of illness, it's actually a deliberate defensive response by your immune system. to fight off the infections. They can actually slow down or kill the parasites before they have a chance to keep spreading. The most important thing is to stop them from getting to his eyes, so they should apply a saltwater compress to the area using the same strategy of increasing the salinity to make the conditions around his eyeballs uninhabitable for the larva. Then all they can do is continue to treat him with anti-inflammatories and antihistamines until they're able to get him real medical attention. Now, Ahmed here is worried about their water supply, but 154 nautical miles from shore, traveling at top speed of 12 knots, they can reach the harbor in just about 12 hours, giving them plenty of time to make it without suffering from dehydration. So instead of thinking about anything else, I would focus on keeping the engines running so they can get home as soon as possible. A few hours later, Ahmed finds her at the helm and announces that it's time to check the water supply. Going back below deck, the two of them nervously pull open the hatch, but when she dips a net into the tank, it instantly is torn to shreds by the ones that are still alive. And for now, there's nothing that they can do besides wait and see. In the morning, the crew holds a funeral for Johnny, and it's clear that the others won't last much longer themselves. I mean, they all look concerningly sick, and as Ahmed goes to start the engines, she notices that his boots are still covered in blue slime. Realizing that they're still exposed, she rushes to her bag to take a look at the samples, waking up Sooty as she rifles through her equipment. But as he rubs his eyes, he comments that the room seems incredibly dark. Looking him over, she notices that he's still bleeding, and he starts to complain that his vision is getting worse and worse. It's the same thing that happened to his friend, but trying to keep him calm, the girl blames it on the blood loss instead, reassuring him that he isn't infected even though she has no idea if that's true. Observing the sample with her microscope, she discovers that the larvae are still alive in the slime, and immediately runs to warn the others that they're all in danger. The only way that they'll avoid infection is if they kill off the eggs before they spread to anyone else, but getting it done is not going to be as easy as they think. They decide to start running disinfectant through the purification system, but Savan quickly tells them that it won't be enough to get the job done. Needing a new plan, she goes to Ahmed and asks if they have any UV light on board, explaining that it works against the offspring of other deep-sea species. He doesn't have one already made, but using her cell phone, a few strips of tape, and a purple marker, they're able to create a makeshift UV filter. The only problem is, it has absolutely no effect on the larva. Frustrated, they're almost ready to give up, but that's when the lamp gives her another crazy idea. Gathering everyone in the galley, they explain that they want to try using electricity instead of covering every inch of the deck with salt water, and using it as a conductor to fry the eggs. They should be safe from harm as long as they're all wearing rubber boots, and Ahmed here says that he'll insulate the important equipment before they send the charge. After getting everything set up, Freya gives them the all clear, and powering up the arc welder, she places the exposed wire into the water. The boat sizzles and pops with electricity as the current runs along the lower deck, and after giving it some time to take effect, she hands the wire up to Ahmed, who repeats the same process on the deck above her, completing the last part of their plan. Checking the samples, they're kinda relieved to see that it actually worked, but the girl insists that they still can't go back to shore for the next 36 hours, because that's how long it took for Johnny's symptoms to show up. Furious, the captain says that Sooty needs medical attention right away, but she's worried that they might accidentally spread this strange infection to the innocent bystanders on dry land, and countless people could be killed as a result. Looking for backup, she goes below deck to get help from Ahmed, but to her surprise, he's actually on the captain's side, and no matter how she tries to rationalize it, he refuses to hear her out. Okay, Savan here might be a genius for coming up with that plan to electrocute the deck, and the good news is that now it seems like their boat is parasite-free. But staying out there for another day and a half doesn't really seem like the best solution to me. She's worried that they'll spread the parasite to people on shore, but the captain is right when she says that they need to get Sooty to a hospital. And they're quickly running out of fuel and supplies, so there must be a way to reach a compromise and get them back safely without exposing anyone else. First, I'd get close enough to shore that we could clearly be seen, but keep everyone on the boat instead of pulling up to the dock. Then they'd need to send up a distress flare since they don't have a radio to visually communicate with the Coast Guard that they have a problem. Now, as the rescue boats approach, they can use their ship's PA system and hold up signs with messages like "careful" and "infected," warning the emergency responders from a safe distance before they make contact. Once they explain the situation, the response teams can prepare themselves appropriately, treating everyone on board like a level 4 biohazard until 36 hours have passed. Sooty needs immediate medical treatment, so they can transfer him to shore using a specialized quarantine boat, giving him full access to care while minimizing the risk of exposure to everyone on land. As for the others, they can stay here on the boat like Sivan planned, while still getting care from the biohazard team that can monitor and treat their condition appropriately. Just because she can't figure out a cure on her own doesn't mean that medical attention would not help. And this seems like the best way to increase their own chances of survival while still being cautious not to spread the infection to the rest of the world. As the hours drag on, Sooty's vision steadily gets worse and worse until he eventually loses sight altogether. And although Kira here tries to keep him awake, he finally dies from the infection, making 2 down with 5 more to go. Taking his body down to the hold, they have another funeral for their fallen crewmate, but now the skipper's vision is getting so blurry that he can't even read the prayer. From watching the others, the girl can tell that almost all of them are infected, and she keeps insisting that they need to stay quarantined on the boat. But the skipper absolutely flips out and tells her that they're going ashore. Seeing that they won't listen, she decides that it's time to take matters into her own hands. And sneaking to the back of the boat, she deliberately throws one of the lines into the propeller, causing the entire ship to grind to a halt. Hearing it from the galley, Ahmed angrily brings the girl back inside to explain herself. And after hearing that she intentionally sabotaged the boat, Johnny's aunt hauls off and slugs her straight in the face. The others are just as upset, but she refuses to let them land before enough time has passed, saying that they can't risk spreading the infection to the rest of the world. Low-key realizing that she's right, the captain decides that she wants to know who's infected, asking her to check everyone's eyes for any signs of the larva. Starting with Ahmed, it looks like he's in the clear, and the same thing goes for the student when he checks her. Sierra here is up next, but she doesn't find any signs of trouble, and it looks like the captain is also safe. This only leaves Gerard, but just based on his symptoms, she can already tell that he's carrying the parasite. Taking the flashlight, the captain checks for herself, and sure enough, she spots the larva floating around inside her husband's skull. Realizing that he's done for, he finally comes clean to everyone else about taking them off course. So now the rescue teams don't even know where they are. Okay, I don't know about the parasite, but somebody's definitely been infected with the stupid disease. Sivan here just went from the hero to the villain of this story with one idiotic move. But she's not the only one who's to blame. After all, they'd never even be in this situation if it wasn't for the skipper, and that's why both of you sea dogs just f***ed up. Let's start with you, Dr. Doofus. Although it looks like that PhD might have to wait. You might be surprised that you got popped in the face, but if anything, I'm gonna have to agree with Granny here. She did what everybody else wanted to do, and unfortunately her crash out was completely valid. I don't care what the problem is. The solution is to never intentionally leave yourself stranded in the middle of the ocean with no way to call for help. And deciding to just take their lives into your hands without giving anyone else a choice in the matter was the definition of a dick move. But don't think I forgot about you, Gerard, because like I said before, we wouldn't even be having this conversation if it wasn't for you making one terrible decision after another. And nothing syncs up business faster than getting all of your employees infected by previously undiscovered parasites. All you had to do was plot a new course for a different place to fish, but now everyone else has to pay the price for your own financial mistakes, and it looks like it's gonna cost them a lot more than just a few missed paychecks. I hope they enjoyed having eyeballs while it lasted, because you two seriously just f***ed up. The news does not go over well with the others, and everyone storms off to separate parts of the boat, leaving only her and Sierra alone in the galley. After a moment, the woman approaches her as if she's apologizing for the outburst, only to suddenly grab the girl by her throat and start trying to choke her. Pulling away, she dashes out of the room as the woman struggles to control her thoughts. But the rage wins over and she starts attacking her again, chasing her all the way to the ladder. Reaching up, she grabs the girl's ankle and starts trying to pull her down, forcing forcing her to kick herself free, and after losing her grip, she accidentally plummets to her death on the unforgiving metal floor below, making 3 down with 4 more to go. Reaching the woman's body at the bottom of the ladder, they get there just in time to see one of the parasites falling out of her eye, revealing that she was actually infected after all. Meanwhile, down in the bunk room, Gerard apologizes to his wife for getting them into this mess, and knowing that it's only a matter of time before the infection kills him next, he asks her to do it instead. Running to warn the captain, she finds her crying after fulfilling her husband's final wish. But the woman decides that she's had enough and announces that she's going to take the rowboat to shore. Shocked, Ahmed tries to explain that it's incredibly dangerous, but there's nothing that they can do to stop her, and she drifts away into the darkness, never to be seen again. That makes 5 down with just 2 more to go. For a while, everything goes quiet all around the ship until down in the main water tank, something big starts slamming against the lid. Hearing it, they go down to investigate the source of the noise and are surprised to learn that one of the creatures has somehow survived. Needing a new plan, they start brainstorming ways to kill it off, and that's when she realizes that heat might do the trick. Grabbing a blowtorch, Ahmed goes back to the water supply and starts heating the edges, hoping to stun it enough for them to safely get it out. Once they think that it's been long enough, they cautiously open the lid to check inside, when suddenly 3 glowing tentacles spring out from the hatch. But instead of attacking, they disappear through a hole at the bottom of the tank, and looking down, he realizes that the ship is already sinking. Scrambling to get whatever supplies they can, the 2 of them cover the deck in cooking alcohol and set the entire boat on fire, using it as a makeshift distress signal as they climb into the life raft. The girl goes first, but when it's Ahmed's turn to follow her, he nervously admits that he cannot swim and starts carefully making his way down the ladder 1 step at a time. Just when he's about to reach the bottom, he suddenly loses his footing and tumbles over the edge, scrambling to grab onto the raft as the water starts pulling him under. Reaching for his hand, she tries helping him climb aboard when the creature returns and grabs his legs, dragging him down into the abyss right before her eyes. Now, gathering her courage, the girl takes off her life vest and dives in after him, desperately trying to save his life. She finds him fighting off one of the tentacles and manages to help him escape, but in the process, she ends up taking a bite to the hand, getting him to safety just as several more of them were about to close in. Luckily, his suit protected him from getting infected, and as he looks towards the horizon, he sees another boat headed their way. It looks like they're saved, but Sivan wasn't so lucky, and pulling down her sleeve, she reveals the horrifying bite wound on her hand. Now desperate to save her, he starts doing whatever he can to stop the infection from spreading, but the girl knows that it's already too late. Getting to her feet, she dives headfirst into the water and swims down into the darkness, disappearing from sight as she's engulfed by the giant glowing beast. That makes 6 down with only 1 survivor, and it's enough to distract the creature while Ahmed signals to the other boat, waving his hands high above his head as it changes direction and turns towards their ship. But in the end, I think we can all agree that he should probably quit fishing and find another job instead. Sea fever. Unfortunately for me, I've never been out on the ocean and gotten sick, but movies like this and stories from Reddit have kind of told me what it's like to get sick on the ocean, and I don't even wish that on my worst enemy. Well, okay, maybe my worst enemy, but not my homies. Definitely not my friends or family. But you gotta let me know, guys. Is there anything else that you would have done differently in today's episode? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. We'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.